Well, hello there, lads and ladies. Welcome back, finally, to another tattoo story time. And today, I'm going to be talking about my most beloved Red Roses, England, the rugby team, and also the All Blacks as well, and most of the other Northern Hemisphere teams as well, because in this year's International Autumn Nationals, it has been absolutely brilliant. It's been very close. I have to give commiserations to an awful lot of the Southern Hemisphere teams because they have been going at back to back throughout most of the British and Orange Lions tour with South Africa. You've got the All Blacks going off against most of the South Hemisphere teams. I think the All Blacks won that against South Africa 2-1, something like that. I'm not really so sure. I can't really remember the actual scoring system. I believe I think the All Blacks won that by 2-1 against South Africa. Argentina unfortunately came up short. I mean, they're a very good team, but they are still very lacking when it comes to South Africa and the All Blacks of New Zealand, basically. And Australia, bless them, they did a brilliant job. Quade Cooper, bless him, such a hero of Australia. He was able to help beat the South Africans twice in a row, and I think in South Africa, I can't remember if South Africa beat them one time and then Australia beat them two times in a row, or they beat South Africa two times in a row, and then South Africa got the win. I know South Africa got the last word on the All Blacks for like a 2 point lead, as South Africa does. They always like to kind of like keep games interesting by always finishing on penalties, keeping it like within 2 or 3 points if they can help it, basically. Which is fine, really, because it's a good game, really. It's a good way to keep tension, really, with a match and all that, especially with what happened this weekend with England when they beat South Africa. Like, yes, boys, yes, good job. So, if you haven't seen the tattoos yet, this is the English Red Rose with the year 2003 on it. And the two rugby balls also represent our English women as well, because I believe when women started the World Cup, I believe when the International World Cup started for women, it was back in 1991, I think. Amazingly, America won that first. They went undefeated, unheard of. It was gorgeous, like fantastic rugby. The American ladies did. They did fantastic. And then in 1994, England finally took the crown for their first one. Unfortunate to hear about the Black Ferns not being able to play back in 1994 because of some cancellation errors for some strange reason. Very weird. They should have took part. I think then England won it back in 2014, I believe. Yes, 2014. The ladies, this was. And those what the little two rugby balls represent. Also, 2003 was the year the men won the World Cup. Kind of hard to forget Johnny Wilkinson kicking that drop goal from. It was quite an easy drop goal, but he did it off with his wrong foot. Well, it was his like worse foot because he's left-footed, you see, and he kicked it off with his right foot, since his left foot for some reason wasn't working very well that night. But yeah, in my heart, Johnny Wilkinson will always be the greatest number 10, even though Dan Carter from around the world is hailed as like the goat of all goats when it comes to fly halves. But to me, Johnny's still number one in my mind. If you're watching this, Johnny, probably not. I love you. Thank you for what you've done for England. And we love every single one of your games and matches. You've been an absolute hero to the English. Thanks, mate. Also, I'll also be talking about the All Blacks with this tattoo. It's a black fern, or silver fern, I should say. For the 3 years, the All Blacks won when it first started back in, like the Webb Ellis Cup, when it first started back in '87, 2011, and 2015. 2015 was very interesting because it was the first time ever when a rugby team had gone back to back as champions. Even though South Africa have won the World Cup 3 times, they've never been able to do it back to back. It's always been like stagnated. How it's gone from 1995, probably the best South African World Cup in my mind, to 2007 to 2019, very stagnated. So by like superstition, South Africa shouldn't win the next World Cup. I'm actually looking forward to some of the Northern Hemisphere teams. Obviously, my hat's in there for England and all that, but France, after the close games that we've had in the autumn internationals, there has been so much dominance going around with Northern Hemisphere teams. yes, it's true that the South Hemisphere teams have been doing back-to-back games. They're a bit tired, so on and so forth. But again, but again, there shouldn't be excuses for, like, say, lack of play, lack of players, so on and so forth. Kind of like how people are like complaining that Australia is not at their best because of Quade Cooper and other certain players not being able to partake. I think there's an issue going on with Quade where Australia don't kind of want him to play for Australia because of his checkered past, which is kind of stupid, really, because well, one, Australia is built on criminals, so I don't know how you can forget your past so easily, and two, you shouldn't always judge a book by its cover. Yeah, the man might have had a checkered past, but at least he's paid his due, he's done his time, and he's done a great service to Australia by giving them 2 wins over South Africa. So, like, give the man a chance, for goodness sakes. I don't know what the situation is now. Maybe they've actually allowed him his passport, or maybe they allowed him to play, but not on an international level. I'm not so sure. I try not to get too much into the politics of rugby because again it's such a beautiful sport and politics ruins it in a certain sense. Even though Razi from South Africa basically he's South Africa's coach. He came out to say that there are an awful lot of officials um, really like I wouldn't say match fixing, but it's kind of damn close to say that there's been mucking about in like the officiating of rugby really, and it's really hard to see that because it's such a beautiful game with a beautiful fan base and great crowds, great people, where all walks of life come together to just play rugby and leave it on the field. I don't think a sport as great as that should have like the politics behind it that it's so mucked up and the officiating should be so like this bad, as bad as football basically. Don't get me started about football because football is just a rack of racism, politics, and money laundering and shit like that, and I don't want to get into that really. I wanted to come in to talk about my tattoo story times with my love and affiliation with rugby. I started out rugby when I was very young. I was about 12, 13 at the time. No idea what the sport was. I saw a couple of guys play it on the field and I thought, I want to get in on that. I got into it and I kind of did something similar to what Ross Giller did from Friends, where he jumped in the middle of a scrum. I had no idea what the scrum was, and which was stupid because they needed an extra forward, and I wasn't built as a forward. I was like smaller than I am now, but because we had no one that was like the size of like the Green Giant, they thought, okay, you'll do. So they put me like right, uh, like somewhere at the back to kind of like push the guys' butts up to keep the scrum going forward, basically. And I kind of slipped as we were moving forward, and I kind of like thought, okay, what do I do now? Do I join back in? So I just like jumped over my guys and jumped straight in the middle after the ball. I had no idea what I was doing at the time. But ever since like 3 or 4 games after that, I found that my place was as a back, as a fly half, because I just loved being able to decide who should play the ball. Should I pass it? Should I kick it? Should I run with it? That was my position. The fly half was seen as the leader of the backs, but everyone knew that the team was as one, basically. If you were selfish, you were either punished or thrown off to the side for God knows how long, because we didn't like it when wingers were always like taking chances around the wing too far away from the guys. So we had to like keep within tight nips, basically, because if you go too far wide out in rugby, you get taken out real easy and the ball gets taken back, which is silly to be on your own because you have to let go of the ball once you're off your feet. And an awful lot of penalties that England are very well known for are for holding on to the ball too long. And I will account to that because of the South Africa game, literally like a day or so ago, because we gave like 18 penalties away. I was heartbroken at how many penalties we were giving away. But somehow we were so goddamn lucky to keep the roaring bleeming maul from South Africa away from the English half, really, because though their boys are big, they have some big freaking forwards, and their scrums were amazing. They were able to do the rolling maul so perfectly. I have no idea how we were able to hold them off so long as we did, basically. Thankfully, we had 3 tries by some of the best forwards in English history, really. The backs did a beautiful job. Marcus Smith, fantastic fly half. He's done very well this year in international rugby. Very young, I think he's like 19 something. Brighton boy. He's actually studied at Brighton College as well, oddly enough, just down the road from me. It's interesting, really. But Yeah, the other boys did brilliantly. Courtney Laws, he definitely needs a little bit more years as captain for him to blossom, I think. But yeah, it was a nice a fresh of breath air really to see some of the younger boys come up and try their hand really. I don't know if Don Brandt played that game. I didn't really watch it all the way throughout. I think I managed to catch bits too in here and there from podcasts because BBC won't cover it half the time, and most of it was all on Sky Sports, which is kind of a nuisance. So I had to kind of like look out for it on radio and all that. But still, it was a fantastic game, fantastic season of the internationals. Mostly just glorified friendlies, really. But yeah, it's just been freaking brilliant how close they are. The Northern Hemisphere have been destroying. Ireland have beaten New Zealand for hardly enough the second or third time in their life, and I think this is the second time France beat New Zealand as well. I think it's due to the fact that Fozzie is now New Zealand's coach, where they're kind of like missing something. Their team is still good. It's a very good team. It's just they've got that leadership issue with their coach. There's like a miscommunication there going on with the All Blacks, and once they get that sorted, they're going to be right back into the dominant force that they are really. And with South Africa, it was mainly a case of like missing certain players and an awful lot of kind of misguidedness when it came to the England game and other games, really, because the Welsh game was interesting. Because the Welsh game, there was like a runner on the pitch, and well, not a runner, I'd say it was like a pitch invader who kind of stopped the Welsh from possibly scoring a try and possibly turning it into a Welsh win, like a first Welsh win in God knows forever against South Africa. You can't really complain about stuff like that because stuff happens, and you can go on about it. You can go on about past glories and all that stuff, but you have to think about what happens on the day really. And on that day, South Africa were better. It's just certain things could have been different, but unfortunately they never happened. But as you do. South Hemisphere dominance has definitely been taken into retrospect this time in this international. Although things might be different when the Six Nations roll around, really. France have been showing absolute dominance. But again, it could be like France's first Six Nations win in a long while, really. I can't really remember the last time they won it, but it's, I think Wales won the last one. So they'll definitely be defending champions. But England have got a nice spark going with like new backs, new forwards, and some old experienced heads in there as well. I can't really see Owen Jones from Wales being their captain this year because of certain injuries that he's been facing. I'd love to see Owen Jones back in because he's a brilliant captain for Wales. And as long as they have Dan Biggar as their fly half, then they're going to be scoring penalties left, right, and centre. Really, Dan Biggar's brilliant at what he does. Really, absolutely brilliant. Also with Andy Farrell, who I believe it's Colin Farrell. Sorry, Owen Farrell's father. He's the coach for Ireland, which will be interesting really to see how his coaching goes because I believe he was the coach when Ireland beat New Zealand. So it's definitely a nice change of pace really to see some new coaches basically teaching Ireland from here forward really. From what I've heard from Andy, he knows what he's doing to a certain degree, but not as it's probably not as experienced as people would like, but again, you have to start somewhere, and you've got to give the bloke room to breathe and give him a chance to give his team the opportunity to try new things forward. Basically, hopefully by the 2023 World Cup standards of Ireland's plays, they will definitely be better than what they were last time out, being beaten by Japan and all that. No one wants that. But again, you got to give thanks to Japan. Really, they did very well against Scotland. They tried to come back late in the recent international, but unfortunately, the Scottish defence was too strong, and their offence was definitely good. Hogg is definitely one of those guys in the Scottish group that knows what he's doing, and he's got the experience behind him to really push his team forward. That's the thing about Scotland; they're dark horses, really. So they're always ones to look out for in the Six Nations. I can't wait for next year's Six Nations. I can't wait for the 2023 World Cup. And yeah, when I get the chance, I will try and get tickets to go because I really, really, really need to go and see some games because it's been way too long that we've had rugby. It's been 2 years since we've missed that. We've missed that need for sport in our lives. Basically, the crowd roaring the players on. Sport does something to people where it unites us in ways that we never imagined. But it also can separate people depending on outcomes, really. It's such a powerful tool, which is why Nelson Mandela used it in the 1995 World Cup. between South Africa and the other teams, and mostly the All Blacks when they were able to beat them, to unite the nations, really. Kind of when Francois Pienaar basically went on to say, oh no, we're not, we didn't win in front of like 60,000 South Africans, we won in front of 16 million or 6 million South Africans, something like that. A brilliant line, and a very humble man that Francois Pienaar is, especially when it came to Nelson Mandela, really. So that's what I love about this sport, how it can just unite people, and just, it's just such a sport that you want to believe is like the sport that we can like hold up to the standard of gentlemen and like ladies, to the point of where we go in as enemies, we bash heads as enemies, that like we want to kill the other guy in front of us, we want to get through them and get to the line, but at the end of it, we are all friends, we are all in unison, as the world's as the rugby well-known Sun Modern Union is. Basically, that's what it is that we all come together, enjoy one of each other's cultures, and just unite as one. So those are my tattoos. That's my tattoo story of me just going on about my love for rugby. I know it's not much of a story. I'd love to tell you more about like my odd games, like my old school games with rugby, because there have been some interesting ones. I remember this one team from New Zealand that came over for like a fun play. Like it was a school exchange really, and we had the New Zealand team come over, where one of the props like stood on my back, and then I kicked like 3 drop goals over his head when he tried to tackle me, and he said, "You're all right, aren't you, mate?" Like not like in a London accent. I can't do a Kiwi accent, I'm afraid, but I'd probably insult way too many people if I tried. Not Kiwi, are you? No, that's more Aussie. Sorry, guys. But no, yeah, he was a fun guy. Like afterwards, we went out for a couple of drinks. It was brilliant. He's a very nice chap, really. I hope he's doing well. But yeah, that's been my tattoo story. I will be gone for a week in Oxford. I'll be enjoying my nice time with my family in Oxford for the week. So the next time you'll see me will probably be on Monday or Tuesday, depending. I will hopefully catch up on some of my reading, and I'll probably bring out a Konohanakitan review on Monday or Tuesday, or possibly another Komikan Communicates on that time. I've also got an Assassin's Creed manga that I want to bring out as well with Zhao Yun. If you know of her, she's the Chinese assassin from Ezio Auditore's story. It's like a small animation story, but it goes on to a story and tells a little bit about her and her creed. But yeah, it'll be interesting. So, until then, thank you all ever so much for joining me, lads and ladies. I hope you all have a wonderful, beautiful, and fantastic day. Take care, my friends.